Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector here, and I just decided to pop in Def Jam Fight for New York to get a little bit of quick fighting action in. And as I did that, an article kind of came across my phone from IGN talking about a story where California is getting ready to put in legislation that would prohibit video game companies from using the term buy or purchase whenever you are, I guess, paying for a game that you're only downloading. And this is really meant to make sure that the consumer is educated as to what they're actually purchasing or what they're actually buying. Now, many of us who are already in the gaming world, we understand that digital downloads are not actual purchases of the video game. Like, we understand that when you download a game, what you're doing is you're purchasing the license to actually play the game on whatever hardware you're downloading the game to, whether it be your PlayStation, your Switch, whatever it is. Many gamers and many collectors are already aware of this, which is why the physical gaming community is so strong, and which is why the physical game community is so passionate about keeping their physical games. And basically, what this legislation is really meant to do is to pretty much remove the terms buy or purchase from any type of digital transaction. Now, I'm not sure what they're going to replace that word with. I don't know if they're going to make it rent. I really don't know what other word you would substitute buy or purchase with when it comes to folks handing over their money. Because if you're going to try and use the word rent, well, I can tell you right now, if the average consumer has the option to rent a game for the same price that they could buy it physically, you're definitely going to have more consumers going to buy the physical game as opposed to renting it, because the understanding will be much more clear that they're only going to have limited use or access to the game. Now, again, this is something that most seasoned gamers already understand. They get that, when they make a digital purchase, they're really just paying for the license to use the game for as long as the company has the rights to license the game. But in the event, let's say, of like a Def Jam Fight for New York, where maybe the licenses have expired and they no longer have the rights to use the likeness of a Snoop Dogg or a Busta Rhymes or a Method Man, they'd no longer be able to allow those games to be purchased digitally. And this is where we're starting to see the rubber actually meet the road, when we see things like legislation being brought forth to ensure that consumers understand what it is that they're paying for. Because again, and this is the fourth time I'm saying it in this video, the gaming community understands, but the average consumer doesn't understand that deep within the fine print of their digital purchase, there are clauses that pretty much state that Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, they reserve the right to remove the game at any time, pending, expiring licenses, so on and so forth. And if the average consumer really understood that, it would, I think, drive a lot more attention towards physical purchases than what we're seeing. Now, inevitably, we're all gonna, like, none of this changes the future, right? Like, no matter what we do, no matter what legislation passes, none of this is going to change the fact that we are moving toward an all digital future. But what I can say is that if today's consumer understands what they're paying for, we may see things move in a different direction, even if it's just for a short period of time. Now, there may be the large, majority or a large number of consumers who say, well, you know what? I don't need to have the game forever. I just need to have the game long enough to be able to play through it and beat it. Or I need to just have the game long enough to play it while it's relevant, and then by the time I'm done playing it, it won't matter if it's removed from a digital store or not. But if you're someone who is a collector and you want to have that, then that's really going to matter to you. It's definitely going to matter to you. Because when you think about how you purchase your games now, whether you purchase them from Amazon, GameStop, Best Buy, and you're buying your physical games online, Well, now there's going to have to be a different term used when you get the digital version. So just imagine going to like GameStop's website and purchasing the newest Sony PlayStation 5 game. Well, when you're over the new button, because you know how GameStop, they'll have like the new and then pre-owned. Well, underneath that, they'll have subcategories for that too. And they'll probably have new digital and new physical. And then if you click the new physical, then your next step would be to purchase. If it's new digital, then the next step may be to rent, or maybe they'll use the term license, or maybe they'll have some other term. But I'm very interested to know what that term will be once this legislation passes, because whatever word they use, if it's not buy or purchase, it is definitely going to impact the way people purchase their media, whether they purchase it digitally or physically. Now, all that being said, I wonder how this is going to impact the majority of games that do require a digital download post purchase of the physical game. So if you have games that straight out of the gate require additional digital downloading, will that factor into how they describe those purchases? Because we know that a good chunk of the games being made today do require some type of digital download or some type of digital attachment to either complete the experience or enhance the experience. And if customers are required to do that, does that in turn change the way, or is that new legislation that they're thinking about passing, is it gonna impact the way we purchase those items, or will it impact how we term, what we're getting in exchange for us handing our money over? A lot of times we look at like cartridge-based games, and you could look at a cartridge-based game like a Super Nintendo game and say, well, you know what? You don't own that game either. You still own the license. The only thing is that the license is on a hard, a piece of plastic and metal. Well, that plastic and if that plastic and metal, breaks down or breaks or whatever the case may be, there's no way to replace that. You've lost the license for good. But a lot of us collectors, especially physical collectors, we know that, there's a lot more security and there's a greater guarantee in having a complete physical game on a cartridge or a disc versus having to either A, download it, or B, download the rest of it after you purchase it. So while yes, PS2 graphics might not be as great as the PS5, and while yes, there may be flaws and glitches on Def Jam Fight for New York, I know that I have the full and complete game, and regardless of whatever licenses Sony loses, or EA loses, to be able to use the characters that are in this game, I will always be able to play it. And I'm still playing this game, how many years later? 20 years later, right? So from 2004 to 2024, 20 years later, despite all the licenses expiring, I'm still able to fully enjoy this game. Why? Because it's on this physical disc. So this is very interesting, just hearing about this legislation that's being passed. Not being able to use the term purchase or buy on digital downloads is going to be very interesting. I'm curious to know what word they're going to use to replace buy or purchase. I'm really interested to know. If you can figure that out, let me know down in the comments. If you can think of how they're going to describe you paying money for a digital game. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.